Good morning, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Guess who's back? Back again. DMac is back in the building. How are you, my friend? How was your weekend? How was your travels? I'm glad you're home safely.
Well, I did my best to go to Santa Clara to recruit DeMeco Ryans, but it just it didn't happen. I was out in the San Jose, Santa Clara area, which, Rachel, is not anywhere close to San Francisco. I mean, not really. But it was a hotbed of 49ers. Sunday, we went out and went to a restaurant. It was packed in downtown San Jose. Everybody, cheering for the Niners. And as I'm watching the game on TV amongst a million other Niners fans, I'm looking at the TV and I'm seeing the Broncos' third-string quarterback, Josh Johnson, quarterbacking for the Niners. And I'm telling my family, who seem to be vastly uninterested in this amazing fact, that that's the Broncos, who were terrible. That's their third-string guy who's playing on TV right now. I found it, unrelentingly amusing. And the rest of my family was like,
whatever. Honestly, I feel so bad for the 49ers. I saw Brock Purdy's out for 6 months or something like that. So luckily he's got the off season to recover. I don't know what the heck they're going to do with their quarterback situation, though, because they obviously have a lot of talent. I think Jimmy G is going to be gone. But then it's like, Trey Lance, what's his recovery going to be like? You obviously have a star at Brock Purdy, yada, yada, yada. There's a ton you can get into if you were in San Francisco covering the 49ers for sure.
I think they're going to try to rehab Trey Lance, and it's his job. And Brock Purdy, it's a UCL, which is commonly the Tommy John stuff for pitchers. But apparently for football recovery, because you just don't have the same twisting, all the other motions you need to do with your elbow, like as a pitcher, as a quarterback. So apparently the rehab process is much quicker. I know, as bad as it is, UCL injuries, Tommy John injuries, it is true, though, Rachel, once you recover, oftentimes you're even in better shape than you originally were. So It's hardly a death sentence. So I think you see some sort of battle between Lance and Brock Purdy. But amongst all of this, all I was thinking about and hearing about was the Broncos situation. Left and right, it was wild.
I was going to say there's so much drama that's happened, even just in the 2 days. Well, technically, I know you were gone for the weekend, but the 2 days that you were on coffee break, there's been so much drama, DMac. It has been mind-blowing, and there's been so many different storylines that I'm over it. I'm ready for them to hire a head coach. I'm like, just let's put it all to rest, everything. But let's get into the latest, which is Jim Harbaugh, because I don't think you were here when we found out that he went back to Ann Arbor. Were you?
I was not. No, I was not. But that's consistent with what I was hearing. But I got stuff on Harbaugh from this morning, so I'm excited to lay that out for you.
I'm ready. Can you give me a little teaser there? Let me hear.
Well, the Broncos coaching situation, Rachel, from what I understand and doing some work on it over the weekend and this morning, it's still very fluid and can go in several different directions. Okay. Let me tell you what I believe is not out of the picture. I do not believe Jim Harbaugh is out of the picture.
Oh my God, I can't do this anymore, DMac. I can't do it anymore. Okay, why?
Not only is he not out of the picture, I believe that all the spin about him turning the Broncos down is false. I believe there's plenty of interest that Jim Harbaugh still has in the Denver Broncos. I think it's the Broncos who are sort of putting Jim Harbaugh right now on the back burner. And I think tomorrow is a very interesting day because it's the it's the commitment day for college, so it's a big day tomorrow. And I just think the Broncos, they know him well. They do have their Stanford connections. I think if they wanted Harbaugh, they could get him, not the other way around. Okay. And the reason I'm going down in that direction, Rachel, is simply because the Michigan has not done a new contract with Harbaugh. Because, Rachel, I think Michigan would be fine moving on from Jim Harbaugh as soon as the commitment day is done tomorrow. This is a hairy time right now. Hairy, scary time for colleges to get to tomorrow. So as soon as tomorrow's done and the commitments are made, I think that changes things dramatically. And I think a lot of things could happen. I think Michigan could simply move on from Jim Harbaugh if they really wanted to. And I think Jim Harbaugh would still be interested in the Denver Broncos.
So why do all the antics of, oh, he's returning, unless you're just trying to screw over a bunch of kids who are like, Jim Harbaugh is going to be my head coach at Michigan next year. But then you're just screwing people over with this idea of who's going to
be. But Rachel, maybe not, because a lot of recruiting in college football and college sports in general is done by the assistant and position coaches. And the head coach is kind of, you oversee everything. But really, when you're talking about like 100 kids on a college football team, they have a much closer relationship with their position coach rather than the head coach. And the truth is, Rachel, once things are set up a certain way, kind of anybody can be the head coach of Michigan. You're Michigan. You kind of can do a lot of things on your own. But if you hire Jim Harbaugh and he starts taking some of his assistant coaches from Michigan, now kids are decommitted. Now kids are freaked out if that happens beforehand. So you get to tomorrow and things change quite a bit. Or at least they possibly could change quite a bit. So do not rule out Jim Harbaugh, but I don't think he's the Broncos' first choice. I don't.
So who do you believe is the Broncos' first choice? Because, they have not scheduled second interviews with anybody. The only second interview we know that they had is Jim Harbaugh because Greg Penner flew out to Ann Arbor.
But was it, Rachel, a second interview or was it a meeting?
Wait, did you say a meetup or a meal?
A meeting. Was it really a second interview or was it just a meeting?
Well, I guess you could call it both. I think
there are certain people, Rachel, who see a significant difference in a meeting and a second interview. I think there's a perceived significant difference between the two, even though it just seems on the surface semantics.
Okay, so just because we're playing this game, I look at an interview of, I'm trying to understand which way you want to take our team compared to a meeting of, I know which way you want to take this team, so here's what we need to discuss about that.
Well, Rachel, here's where it would just be a meeting. Jim Harbaugh wanted to do it more than the Broncos ownership wanted to do it. That's where it's a meeting more than it's an interview. And you have to keep in consideration, Rachel, and I know this sounds insane, traveling for Greg Penner, Rachel, it's like you and I driving down to the donut shop or the popcorn shop. Just getting on a plane and flying anywhere for people of that wealth, Rachel, when you own the plane, who cares? Yeah, you could fly to 4 different places like you're taking your dry cleaning out. It's just not that big. It seems like a big deal. We make it a big deal. But you realize Greg Penner's not in, Southwest on, B42 lining up to, some snotty-nosed kid.
I have a question. Yeah. And then we need to get into who you think their first candidate is. Was it just Greg Penner who went to Ann Arbor, or did everyone go?
He was there with George Payton. No, you know what? Actually, that's a good question, Rachel.
Great question, because if
you know what? Let me time out on that one.
Take some.
That's a damn good question. You get a gold star on that one, because that would tell you a lot about the process. Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna have to double back on that one, but it's a good question. But I do know there's a big difference between a meeting and an interview, and I do know that there are people that just perceive it as a meeting, not an interview. Okay. So so
far the report is saying Jake on the back end letting us know that it was Penner and Payton, but I do wonder if anyone else was in attendance.
Yeah, I got some questions about that too. I know where Jake's going, but I that's one I would love to take some time and double back on.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I will. I know what was reported, but not everything that's reported is always the truth. But this it may be a moot point, because I don't think Jim Harbaugh is even close to being their number one candidate.
Okay, but so who's the number one?
DeMeco Ryans, I think, is the number one candidate.
Agreed. But then there's all these mixed things coming out with Woody Page saying, oh, he's already told the Broncos he's not interested. Justina Anderson comes out and says they have not officially told the Broncos that DeMeco is not interested. Like, there's just so many things. And then you have JJ Watt tweeting out a picture of him and DeMeco in Texans uniforms. So like, my head is spinning, DMac.
All right, I'll help stop your head spinning.
Thank you.
I think DeMeco Ryans must have had the best interview of anybody with the Broncos. I think he blew them. I think he blew Greg Penner away. And logically, George Payton wouldn't necessarily be opposed to somebody like DeMeco Ryans because it establishes George Payton as the GM. Mm-hmm. However, football minds, rightfully so inside the building, Rachel, rightfully so, may be wary about a first-time head coach coming here for the fourth time in a row. So, but this is Greg Penner's first time through the process. I remember when I moved to Buffalo, Rachel, and my first year in Buffalo was the fourth year the Bills had gone to the Super Bowl. So when I was there, I was like, hey, this is awesome. I mean, this is great because it was my first time. Meanwhile, everybody near me was, oh, I don't know about this. I got to do something here real quick. Sorry about that. I don't know about this. I don't know about that. Yeah. It was an interesting process to see the hesitation that other people had that I didn't because I was going through it the first time. So Greg Penner isn't as impacted by these mistakes as the first-time coaches like we all are because it's his first time through it. I think DeMeco Ryans blew him away, and I think he's Greg Penner's first choice. And at the end of the day, Greg Penner gets to make the ultimate decision. Mm-hmm. However, there is a significant twist, Rachel. Two twists. It's the fact that DeMeco Ryans' wife is from Houston. And I think that is not something to treat lightly or I think there's significant reasons why that's a big deal. I can't go into other details, but I think there's beyond the obvious. I think there's other reasons why that's a big deal. Let me just leave it there. However, I believe DeMeco Ryans' agent is telling him, take Denver. And I have some proof in that pudding because yesterday, if DeMeco Ryans was a slam dunk for the Texans, Rachel, why wasn't he announced as the head coach yesterday? And from what I understand, what the Broncos don't want is to get into a leverage battle where he interviews with them again and then he comes to Denver again. Like, that's not going to work. Rachel, these second interview things, except for the Colts, who are legitimately having second interviews. Second interviews are a misnomer because there's a lot of conversations, Rachel, already happening. There's been virtual second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth interviews, Rachel, happening this entire time because we can just pick up a phone and talk. You don't have to necessarily be here. So Ryans, I think, if Ryans in the next 24 hours, Rachel, decided he wanted to be with the Broncos, I think he would be the head coach of the Denver Broncos. But so it is his decision. Now, here's what's interesting. None of this has to do with Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson, I'm saying this loud, not proud, but loud. Wow. Russell Wilson is not a negative. Russell Wilson is not a factor why people aren't interested. In fact, right now, Rachel, everybody is kind of interested. Even DeMeco Ryans, who's heavily leaning towards Houston, is still interested, and his agents certainly are very interested. And it's not a negative that Russell Wilson is on the Broncos. But that leads us to Sean Payton.
Okay, let me go through all my questions real quick on DeMeco Ryans, and then we will get to Sean Payton. No, I do not think Russell Wilson is a negative. I think if you want to be a head coach of an NFL football team, you believe that you can absolutely fix everything. And I know people don't like the words fix around Russell Wilson, but something has to change for Russell Wilson, therefore him needing to be fixed, essentially. I don't think he's a negative for any of these head coaches. I don't think it's as much drama outside of Denver as it is here in Denver when it comes to Russell Wilson. Who do you choose? And what's the difference in payment when it comes to the Broncos and Houston? Do we know any of that information when it comes to how much they're willing to offer in Houston and how much they're willing to offer here? Because, of course, your wife's going to want to go be with her family, right? I can totally get that. But if it's a big enough change difference, I think at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if they can pay more.
But here we go that's a great point by you. Great point by you. You're hitting home runs left and right on all of this. The thing that you got to keep in mind is DeMeco Ryans, like our very own Derek Wolfe, was a second-round draft choice in 2006 who played for 10 years. Rachel, his career earnings were over $50 million. Like, now here's who money matters to: agents. So I have no doubts that the Broncos are offering or would. Let me backtrack, because there have been no official offers made. How about that? There have not been any official offers made, but I have no doubts that the Broncos could offer more money. And I just don't know what the final tally would be that would sway that decision.
But that's why I say it, right? If he's already made so much money, more than a majority of people will make in their lifetime, if they're only offering $2 million more, then I'll go to Houston. If they're offering 10 to 15 million more, you're like, well, that's some more life-changing money. That's generational money to go down.
Agreed. But in general, that is bad business. You just would not offer a first-time coach. You know, you wouldn't put him in the top 4 or 5 coaches that get paid, period, and he's done absolutely nothing. He's 38 years old. I mean, that would just be, you know.
So what should they
look like a fool? You'd look like a fool if you did that, to be frank. You know, but maybe you could offer him 3-4 million more, Rachel. Maybe if they're offering 7, you offer 10. Maybe. But you have to, at some point, Rachel, you have to draw some sort of line. Here's what the Broncos don't want to do, and this is clear. They're not going to get into a leverage battle. Like, we like you, DeMeco, but we're not desperate for you. Okay, so you got to make your mind up. And there's enough people within the Broncos who aren't that interested in DeMeco Ryans. You know, I mean, it's you know, it's not like that big of a slam dunk.
Okay, so now tell me about Sean Payton.
He's clearly not out of it. Okay, let's just start there. He's definitely not out of it. This goes to the Saints, and the team that has the most power in all of this for the Broncos right now, in my opinion, is the Saints. The Broncos do not have a second-round pick, and they have the 29th overall pick. The Niners through the Dolphins pick, and, you know, that's 29 right now.
Hold on.
Here's what I know. Here's what I think. Whatever the Saints want, Rachel, the Broncos don't want to give. Whatever that is. So there has to be some sort of negotiation. Now, this happened with George Payton before. In the Russell Wilson deal, there was a line that could not be crossed, and that was Patrick Surtain. He was not willing to. The whole thing would have fallen apart had the Seahawks insisted on Surtain, because the Broncos said no. They were not going to deal Patrick Surtain, and it was the Seahawks that wanted to get rid of Russ, by the way, who capitulated, and that's why the deal eventually happened. But there was a line. So there is a line for the Broncos right now with what they are willing to give up for Sean Payton. So it's not get Sean Payton at all costs. It's not. But, Rachel, the Saints are now playing a game of chicken. Because if they don't get rid of Sean Payton this year, Rachel, I promise you, the value for Sean Payton next year goes down, not up. It goes down. So your only shot of getting possibly a first-round draft pick or draft compensation at all, if you're the Saints, may happen in the next 24 hours. So the Saints got to have a serious sort of come to Jesus moment themselves about what they want to get. But Rachel, I do believe this. If the Broncos can figure out a deal that they're comfortable with and the Saints agree to, I think Sean Payton is the next head coach of the Denver Broncos.
Okay, well, Ian Rappaport just now on the McAfee show said the Broncos could end up hiring Sean Payton or Jim Harbaugh still.
Do you feel smart here? Do you feel smart? I mean, that's happening. Hey, this is happening with me and you, and it's happening with Rappaport and McAfee at the same information, same exact time.
This is why you should listen to us.
The fact that we started this conversation and virtually everything we've said here was just confirmed seconds ago should indicate something.
I'm with you. Gosh, though, it's just like my head keeps spinning.
Rachel, there's other scenarios. Do you want to hear the other scenarios?
Oh, God. I don't know. Do I want to?
Do you want to?
Can my head handle it? Yes, of course I want to hear the other scenarios. Hit me.
Nuclear option. Ryans goes to the Texans.
Okay.
The Saints are the Saints. They're dumb. They don't move. And the Broncos say, forget it. And they're just too freaked out by Jim Harbaugh, like, because he's a weird, kooky dude.
Okay.
Now we're talking about Dan Quinn or Jim Caldwell.
Okay, but Dan Quinn's obviously already said he's going back to the Cowboys.
Whatever. Who cares what he's already said? Believe me, that's pish paw.
Harbaugh, right?
Here's what that does for Dan Quinn. He doesn't want to go through an embarrassment of a second interview and not get the job. He doesn't want to do that, okay? So never mind what he said about going back to the Cowboys. What that means is I'm not going to take a second interview. If you want to hire me, let's talk. But I'm not going to do a second interview, which is fine by the Broncos because they're not going to do second interviews anyway. Because like I told you, they're talking to people behind the scenes. Mm-hmm. And Jim Caldwell, it's not lost on anybody that he's got previous head coaching experience and he's got the highest winning percentage of any of these coaches as a head coach in the National Football League compared to everybody. That is not lost on anybody. He's not a very exciting pick compared to everybody else, but he's not out of consideration. And believe it or not, even a little bit further behind him would be Evero and David Shaw. They're not even out of it. There's only one guy who's out of it. There's only one candidate who is out, and that's Raheem Morris. He's it. There are other wacky scenarios where all of a sudden Evero or even David Shaw could come back into play. But that's when we may get into a second interview thing. That may happen if it gets that far down the line. If it does get to like Quinn really doesn't want to move, you may have a series of second interviews with candidates that have already happened. I do believe the Broncos were considering the mystery candidate as well. I just don't think the mystery candidate was a high-profile person. I don't. I just think it was, another assistant that's probably occupied right now. And even that, Rachel, it's like it exists, but it's not, high on the list, or it's barely worth even talking about. That, again, a lot of things would have to wash out. This is when we get into next week. If we get into next week, Rachel, we may explore the mystery candidate and a round of second interviews here in Denver. That might happen. But that's only a next week scenario.
What essentially you've just told me is all the headache that I've had for like the past 2 weeks is all for nothing, because really everyone is still in the mix. It's just the level of how people are in the mix.
Here's what's crazy. A lot of people thought, the Broncos are a bad job. They hate Russell Wilson. George Payton's incompetent, blah, 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 blah. None of these things actually seem to be true. I'm not the biggest.
Creating or controlling the narrative then?
Let's say that again.
Are the Penners controlling the narrative?
Well, I think the narrative is consistent with the reality, because if not, you would have seen, Rachel, other coaches get hired. You would have seen a new contract at Michigan for Jim Harbaugh. You would have seen DeMeco Ryans be hired by the Texans. I think the narrative is consistent with reality because other things haven't happened. There have not been, the Cardinals haven't hired anybody. Neither have the Colts or the Texans or the Broncos yet. So that means 4 of the 5 jobs are still out there, Rachel. So, the narrative, I think, is the reality. And I don't think the Broncos are nearly in as bad of a spot as it looks like on the surface. It looks terrible on the surface. But I guess I'm here to, I think I'm bringing you good news. What I think I'm telling everybody is, aside, DeMeco Ryans seems like a little bit of a long shot because I do believe it's leaning towards Houston. But that is for some interesting reasons, Rachel. That's not because he would hate the Broncos. And you got to know his agents favor the Broncos. He just has, a different personal relationship because of his wife that may impact, his decision. That's it. Other than that, Rachel, everybody is very interested in the Denver Broncos. Everybody.
Okay, so there's this narrative out there that they're losing and no one wants to be here and yada yada yada. That's
untrue. I'm here to tell you today, Rachel, it's untrue.
That's got to make Broncos country feel a lot better.
I hope so.
everyone was thinking this new ownership group has come in and it is down in the dumps and things are bad and Pat Bowlen would never. But okay.
Nope.
I'm trusting you. When do you think we'll hear about a head coach?
Well, I can go through it. We could hear about Sean Payton today if the Saints, and here's a fun one. Mickey Loomis, who runs the Saints and was involved with the Pelicans, and I'm not sure exactly what his role is with the Pelicans. The Pelicans are here in town today to play the Nuggets.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is wild, and you want to follow airplanes and, like, have detectives. Where's Mickey Loomis today? Like, is he up here watching the Pelicans, or are there other things going on? That's a fun tinfoil hat conspiracy theory about Mickey Loomis. So,
Portillos?
What's that?
Los Dos?
Who knows, Rachel? Tamales seal many deals. I don't know. You might be right. But
margaritas and Mexican food for lunch today. See who pops in.
It's just a crazy coincidence that Loomis, who's been connected with the Pelicans, and maybe Jay can know a little bit more details about his role with the Pelicans and the Saints, but it is just unbelievable irony that the Pelicans are actually here. They only play in Denver one time a year. So here we go. This is the day, and maybe there's some other. Now, this is conspiracy theory, Rachel, okay? But it's just a fun little factoid in this whole mess. So if it's Sean Payton and the Saints, seriously, Rachel, that could happen at any moment. If the Broncos, I believe, if the Broncos just chose Jim Harbaugh for whatever reason in the next 5 minutes, it would be announced in the next half hour if they really felt that way. Other than that, we may have to watch till tomorrow to see how things go.
Okay, so I guess this opens up another question. Is Sean Payton really candidate number one?
No.
If they don't have to give a first-round pick at all?
No, it's DeMeco Ryans. Because at the end
number two over Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Oh, okay. So Harbaugh's at 3?
Harbaugh. I think Harbaugh would like to think he's 3. I think Harbaugh is, I don't know. I mean, I think Harbaugh is a crazy wild card. So I couldn't even tell you that. Because, like, if it came down to Harbaugh or Quinn or Harbaugh or Caldwell, I think there would be a long meeting about it. I don't think it's a slam dunk.
Good Lord, this is just...
But again, I think this is the Broncos' decision, not Harbaugh's decision.
Okay, so Ryan's 1. If he's in Houston, who knows if he'll ever walk out of the door. Sean Payton number 2, and then there's just a wide spread of them.
Kind of.
3.
I think that's fair with a lot of possibilities in the mix.
Okay, interesting. Well, of course we'll keep.
How do you feel about that, Rachel?
Oh my gosh, it's so difficult because I understand people where they say I don't want a first-year or first-time head coach again because obviously we've seen the disaster that's been the past couple of years. So I get that. I like what Ryans has. Now, who he's going to bring in to be a supporting cast, I think really depends or really matters. And we don't know any of those answers. Sean Payton, I know everybody's super high on him. I'm not because I don't think Sean Payton would be Sean Payton if it wasn't for Drew Brees. So he doesn't really give me this spark. When I look at Jim Harbaugh, I'm like, all right, you've made some kooky decisions. Is it kooky that what you say or quirky? What do you... Kooky?
He's a kooky, quirky. But by the way, he's my first choice still. I would choose of all these scenarios. I would choose Jim Harbaugh.
I know.
Okay.
I just don't know, and maybe it's because I can see all the negatives to them, but I'm like, who can really work the most with Russell Wilson? But I think you do have to have a father who comes in, right? The dad role, the adult role that can come in. And I think it's got to be Sean Payton or Jim Harbaugh because I don't know who else can do that. I don't want to see Evero. I don't think Evero should be the head coach of the Denver Broncos, but I really don't want to see him leave because I think he would still be a fantastic.
He may not, Rachel. He may not. He could be back.
I like that. I like that idea a lot. So there's just a lot But see, then again, I'm like, I don't think Sean Payton's really done anything without Drew Brees. So can he go in there and change Russell Wilson? And I just don't know the answer to that. Otherwise, like, what does Sean Payton bring to the table? Like, let's be honest, DMac. What does Sean Payton bring besides being an adult in the room?
Experience, I guess. I'm not high on Sean Payton, Rachel.
No.
You know, it's not my guy either. Hey, listen, what I would really do is I'd burn it to the ground. I would name anybody the interim head coach. I mean, seriously, anybody. I would
Jerry, he wants it.
Whoever. Sure. You know, I would post June 1st designate Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
It's going to cost you a lot of money. It's going to be hard. But I really would shoot for my DMac's world. And this, of course, if you did this, you'd be letting go of George Payton too, because now you really wouldn't care. And you really would be just starting. You'd have an interim coach. You'd hire whoever to be your GM. You'd probably have an interim coach and an interim GM. You'd probably keep both of those positions interim, okay? And you would aim for a 2-15 season. And now we're drafting Caleb Williams or Drake May because, Rachel, you have to at some point close your eyes and imagine how, I'm closing my eyes, I'm not driving, how would Russell Wilson look competing against Patrick Mahomes in the AFC Championship game? I mean, can you really see it? Can you see beating Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, even Tua Tagovailoa or Trevor Lawrence? I mean, can you close your eyes and imagine this happening? Now, if the Broncos were in the NFC, Rachel, that's a different deal. They've just gone about quarterbacks in a different way in the NFC, okay? You have a pure khaki pants quarterback in the Super Bowl with Jalen Hurts. But Rachel, the NFC quarterbacks in general are older, you know, longer in the tooth in less competitive divisions. They are. The Broncos play in the AFC, and that's just the harsh reality. And so, like, can you really envision Russell Wilson being able to beat any of those other younger quarterbacks I just mentioned? Can you? No matter who the coach is.
I hate when you're right about this because I can't. You can't because they're all young. They're all mobile. They can all run around and
right. But can you imagine Russell Wilson outplaying Matt Hasselbeck? I mean, yeah. Can you imagine him even outplaying like a Daniel Jones? Sure. Yeah. Like even Jalen Hurts. I mean, Russell Wilson and Jalen Hurts kind of look like the same guy. You know, maybe, yeah, I can sort of imagine that. Like you can imagine it. You know, Dak Prescott is not that, you know, awe-inspiring these days. There's a lot of guys in the NFC you would say, oh, yeah, I know I can see Russell, you know, leading the team in that sort of fashion. But it's the AFC, Rachel, not the NFC. And that's where my struggles with this whole thing, that's why they exist.
I know. We could spend a whole hour talking about this and how Russell Wilson fits into this NFL nowadays. But we do need to talk about how the NFL yesterday came out with the amount of money it will take to franchise tag a player. And a lot of people have been talking about Dremont Jones getting franchise tag. Well, it's going to cost them about $19 million to be able to franchise tag it. Is he worth $19 million? And I want people in the comments to chime in too. I've seen a few that have come by. People saying yes and people absolutely saying hell no. What do you think, DMac?
Well, that's what he's going to get. So he's either going to get that as a franchise tag or he's going to get that as a free agent. So whether he's worth that amount of money, Rachel, it actually doesn't matter. That is just what he's going to get. So the real question is, do you want to keep Dre'mont Jones, not how much you're going to have to pay him to keep him? I mean, maybe you can save a few bucks if you sign him to like a 4-year deal and you can defray the money over a period of time. Yeah. Okay, fine. But that is what he's going to earn. He's going to be one of the top guys in this free agent class at that position. He's going to get 19 or damn close to 19 per. Period. So if you don't give him 19, he's just going to go to free agency.
Yeah.
Or you tag him and he's just going to be pissed off. And I mean, you know, the teams have all the power when they tag you. There's not much you can do aside from just, you know, cry like a baby. So, so to answer your question,
doesn't matter.
Yes, my answer is yes. He is worth it because you got to have good players on your defense. He's an inside pass rusher who they're hard to find. He is the top valued free agent. You need him. And if you don't have him, you're going to have to find somebody to replace him. And he's the best guy out there at that position in free agency. So actually, I don't think there's really I think you try to do a longer-term deal, and if you can't do a longer-term deal, Rachel, you simply tag them, and then you try to work something out. So I guess the answer is yes.
So the news is always evolving, and we do have some news. As Ryans just finished his second interview with the Texans. He flew to Houston last night. But why was he not named the head coach of the Houston Texans if his interview just finished?
Well, because that's coming. Because it's probably coming. You know, the fact that he was there, because we said why didn't it happen yesterday? Because he flew there, because he flew back from Philadelphia. I mean, it's a travel question. Didn't know that. So he interviewed today. I mean, seriously, it could come out at any moment that he's taking the job, because I told you because
if it was coming out at any moment, Ian Rappaport would not be tweeting that. He would be waiting to announce that DeMeco Ryans has been named the head coach of the Houston.
Nah. These guys, these media muggles, Rachel, they're vultures. They'll report any scrap to get ahead of their opponents. Of course he's going to tweet that. He's going to get that information out in this battle of parcels of information. I would say, did he say it had concluded, or that he was doing it?
Just finished his second interview.
Finished? Okay, that means he got in last night, and they finished before lunch. So to me, now here's what happens. They go out to lunch. They're going to some sort of steakhouse, and the agents now are hashing things out behind the scenes. And theoretically, during a 2-hour lunch, at some point, there's a call that happens and said, DeMeco, we got it done. It's done. And they all smoke cigars. And if Vic Fangio was there, he'd order a second hamburger. And to me, barring some sort of miracle at this point, and I already told you, the Broncos were not interested in having him in for a second interview because they don't want to play that game. So he's going to probably take a little bit less than he would for the Broncos. His wife and her family are going to be thrilled, and he's going to get to go home where he is going to be received as a hero from his former teammates in the community. And that is a freaking amazing hire by the Houston Texans. That is a world-class hire. And to boot, he gets to pick on Stroud or Young to be his next quarterback. He gets to start over at quarterback with the number 2 overall pick. That's a tough story to overcome if you're the Broncos, Rach. That's a tough story to overcome. And so my guess is they're having lunch right now, and they're hashing out details, and we'll probably hear within the next 2 hours that he's the head coach of the Texans.
I just don't feel that way. I will say,
okay.
Jake, he always says he said no state income tax in Texas. He does win there if he chooses to pay in Texas.
Yeah, but this isn't about money. This is a rare occasion where it's truly not about money. Yeah. He's going to get he already has a lot of money. He's going to get a lot of money. He would get more with the Broncos, but how many boats can you jet ski behind? Water ski. You wouldn't water ski.
That's how many questions we can open up about the jet skis.
Rachel, you cannot discount the personal stuff with the wife and the family. And they have 3 kids, Rachel. They have 3 kids. And you have a job that consumes 70 to 80 hours a week. It's good to have family around. I'll just leave it there.
I think you two will have to come back in a couple hours for lunch break. We'll just do an all-day show. You can also catch DMac and I on Thursday and Friday on The Drive.
How about that, Rach?
Yeah.
All right, let's go. A little radio for you.
104.3 The Fan. DMac, I just don't feel that way, though. I really don't think that they're going to announce anything today. I think he's going to have another talk, and I'm sure his agent is.
You want to put a little Uber Eats coffee on that? You can have something delivered to my house during coffee break tomorrow.
I do not think that DeMeco Ryans will be announced the head coach of the Houston Texans today.
Okay, it's a coffee bet. It's a coffee bet on coffee break to be delivered while we're doing this tomorrow, one way or the other.
Okay.
Well, I got a Starbucks that is a stone's throw from my house. You can help me out with it's on.
No. I'm scared.
So by the way, I'm wearing the visor. So breaking right now as we speak.
Oh my God.
This is not DeMeco Ryans has been hired as the head coach, but this is on your coffee bet. I'm opening up the tab so you can see the screen I'm looking at. Right there. We have completed our interview with DeMeco Ryans today, the Houston Texans. So it seems very unlikely that they would announce him as the head coach today if they're tweeting that out.
Oh, no. Jake. No. That means absolutely nothing. That's a bullying sort of move. Now Jake goes away. All right, fine.
Jake goes away. He's going to come back here in just a second. But
that does not help Rachel whatsoever. Listen, we'll find. Hey, we'll see.
You're going to be sending me coffee, okay?
Oh, I'll get you a tea because I know you don't even drink coffee on coffee break. But
wait. I like
I'll get you whatever you want.
chai. I like. Well, I guess it is a tea. I like chai teas.
I'll get you a chai tea. I'm sure if I order it 4 hours ahead of time, the Sherpa and the llama that would have to get to your house can deliver it while it's cold. You might have to heat it up.
All right. So
because if people don't know, Rachel lives in the middle of nowhere. She's.
I have beautiful views from my house, and I do have a Starbucks close to my house, so you can get me a Starbucks delivered. Don't you fret, my friend.
All right.
Dexter Fowler, he's hanging it up, everybody. We will bring back in Jake Shapiro, but he is hanging it up. He says, I'm hanging up my cleats from an 18-year-old draft pick in Colorado to a vet in Anaheim. There are a few things I will never forget. Getting that call to the big leagues in September of 2008. Wow, my world was spinning. My first, you've been traded to Houston, heart-pounding call, and then he goes on. So congratulations to Dexter Fowler on an incredible career. Everyone knows this. I'm not a huge baseball fan, but I know who Dexter Fowler is. I know what he's done in his career. So I want to get from both of you memories that you have of Dexter Fowler. Jake, welcome in. How are you this morning? And you go first.
I'm good. I've got the visor on. That's my first ability on my resume to get the Broncos coaching job. My second is that I would order steak at a steakhouse. My third, well, there is no third. Those are my only two abilities to take over the Broncos job. So I'll hang up the visor now.
Love it.
Dexter Fowler. Here's a great memory. He's the only player in baseball history to hit a leadoff home run in Game 7 of a World Series. 2016 helped the Cubs win the World Series. A great moment in baseball history. He arguably is the best switch hitter in Rockies history. And unfortunately, Troy Tulowitzki more or less got him traded out of Colorado, and we didn't get to see his whole career here.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
My best memories of Dexter Fowler is every time he would come on TV, my wife would tap me and goes, "That's my boyfriend." She had a pure physical attraction to Dexter Fowler that was somewhat unquenchable. And I was reminded about this more or less for 18 straight years. Thanks, Dex. I have another memory of Dex off the field. There was a nightclub that a lot of the Rockies players would go to down in Lodo that I was at one night, and the whole team was there. I mean, they were all there. And I'll never forget one moment where all of a sudden somebody fell down like right in front of me, and then popped right back up. And he goes, "I'm all right." And it was Dexter Fowler. So showing his, incredible abilities to fall down and bounce right back up. That being said, out of Georgia, out of high school, out of East Cobb, which is one of the best developmental youth programs in America for baseball, Dexter Fowler, talk about a dude with all of the tools to be a Hall of Famer. I think Dexter Fowler, although a great career, nobody could absolutely deny it. I think on the surface, when you looked at Dexter Fowler, he may be a little bit underperforming, to be quite honest with you, with the skill set that he actually had. I think with the skill set he had, Dexter Fowler should have been a potential Hall of Famer, and he just never quite lived up to that.
He was the fourth best 14th round draft pick by WAR of all time. He was an absolute value steal for the Rockies that deep into the draft. Only guy who was predominantly better out of the 14th round is also not a Hall of Famer, and that is Dave Parker. But
hold on, Jake. He's the 14th round as an 18-year-old out of high school. Like, what had, and I don't know where he was committed to college. I'm sure he had plenty of offers. Where would he have been had he spent 3 years in college and then come in as a probably, at the worst, a second-round draft pick, if not a first-round draft pick, had he gotten to college for 3 years? What would the expectations have been there? Meaning by the time he got, I get you where you're going, Jake, but by the time he got to the major leagues, that's when you put on fair expectations for a future, not when you're 18, in my opinion.
Well, and then one quick thing, too, about when he first got to the big leagues, DMac, remember, he was only a right-handed hitter. He had his cup of coffee, goes back down to Colorado Springs at the time, figures out how to switch hit in AAA, and then comes back up and is a switch hitter. It was awesome.
Well, I think that goes to my argument about potential talent unrealized. Listen, he had a great career. But somebody who is 6'5", fast as the wind, incredible defensive player and could hit for power, percentage, everything. I mean, seriously, why isn't that guy a Hall of Famer? Like, what held him back from being in that sort of conversation? And, some careers just go that way. But I don't know if anybody has had the physical tools of Dexter Fowler were just, mind-boggling what he brought to the table. And you know what? You couldn't even win with Dexter Fowler you couldn't even keep him, which, seems kind of ridiculous. I remember when people were like chasing him out of town. It's just like, do you not see this guy? Do you not understand the potential here? But that's another one that I doubt he'll be remembered for his career with the Rockies. I think he'll be remembered for his career other places.
I would agree with that. All right. Well, everybody, thank you so much.
Are we done? That's it?
I know. It's been a crazy.
What about the Nuggets? What about Bones?
We're getting into Bones tomorrow. Should the Nuggets trade Bones Highland,
Yes.
come hang out with us. Incredible numbers.
No.
Break. Thank you so much for spending time with us. We will
Yes.
It's going to be an interesting debate tomorrow for sure. We'll keep you up to date. DenverSports.com with any information you need to know regarding Bones, regarding the Broncos coaching search. Check us out. Jake, Will, James, everybody does an amazing job making sure everything stays up to date. So check it out, DenverSports.com. DMac, as always, a pleasure. Happy to have you back. Jake, thanks for popping in for a quick second. And to everybody else, we will see you back here tomorrow morning, 10:30 a.m. Come hang out with us and see DMac deliver me coffee. Cheers, everybody.
Pray for Harbaugh.